The stamp came down at the 43rd minute of the session. I heard it clearly from the observer's rail, a flat, resonant sound, the kind that procedural bodies invest with all the ceremony they can manage. The closure authority's presiding arbiter, a Vardesi elder named Savath Ron, lifted the seal from the pad and set it on the surface beside him with the careful deliberateness of a man who has just ended something and wants the room to feel it. Around him, the 11 members of the bench sat in their curved formation, robes layered in the amber gray that the Vardesi wear when they sit in final judgment. No one spoke. The stamp was the verdict. Everything after was paperwork. The clerk read the formal entry into the record. Terran diplomatic file, Accord reference 79 Talo. Status, permanently sealed. Delegation standing, withdrawn. Treaty recognition, null. Right of return, denied. Effective this session, by unanimous ratification of the Vardesi Closure Authority, the Terran Compact is no longer a recognized participant in the Interstellar Accord framework. All associated standing, obligations, and protections are hereby extinguished. He set the record down. Savath Ron folded his long fingers together on the bench surface. The observer from the Terran Compact is thanked for his attendance, he said. The chamber will now close this proceeding. You are welcome to vacate at your convenience, attaché Vane. I did not vacate. I had been sitting at the observer's rail for 4 hours and 11 minutes. I had not spoken once during the session, not when the grounds were read, not when the 11 members cast their individual assents, not when Savath Ron himself delivered the bench's summary finding that the Terran Compact had produced no measurable contribution to Accord stability in 31 years and that continued recognition served no interest the authority was chartered to protect. I had sat with my hands flat on the rail and watched each vote register, and I had not moved when the stamp came down. I still did not move now. Savath Ron regarded me with the particular patience of a man who expects the inconvenience to resolve itself. Attaché Vane. The proceeding is concluded. I'm aware, I said. I reached into the document case on the rail beside me and removed the only thing I had brought into the chamber. It was a slender-bound volume, the Closure Authority's own founding charter, printed on the cream-colored synthetic the Vardesi use for documents they consider permanent. I had obtained a certified copy from the authority's own registry office 11 days prior. The request had taken 40 minutes. No one had asked why I wanted it. I set it on the rail. I opened it to the page I had marked. Article 44, I said. Subsection C, paragraph 3. The chamber was quiet. I read it aloud. In the event that a participating delegation's treaty standing is formally extinguished by action of the Closure Authority, and in the event that said delegation had, at the time of original treaty ratification, registered an escalation instrument under Accord Founding Protocol 12, the act of formal closure shall constitute the triggering condition for that instrument's automatic activation. Such activation is self-executing and requires no further action by the extinguished party. I closed the charter. I set it on the rail. We registered an escalation instrument, I said. 31 years ago. The morning the Terran Compact signed the original accord. Savath Ron had gone still. Across the curved bench, I watched the 11 members of the authority exchange the particular look that bodies like this exchange when they are calculating whether what they just heard means what they think it means. The clerk was already pulling up records. Founding Protocol 12 instruments, I continued, are triggered by closure, not by withdrawal. The distinction matters. A delegation that withdraws retains no standing, but the instrument lapses. A delegation that is formally closed, by the authority's own stamp, under the authority's own charter, the instrument activates. Automatically. Without appeal. The founding drafters wrote it that way deliberately. Savath Ron found his voice. The Terran Compact registered no such instrument. The file contains no record. The instrument is held in the Accord Permanent Registry, I said. Not the Compact's file. Protocol 12 instruments are deposited with the founding secretariat at ratification and sealed from authority review until triggered. That's also in Article 44. Subsection D. The clerk had his terminal open. I watched his posture change, the small, involuntary shift of a man who has found the record he hoped he would not find. He pulled it up a second time, as if the first reading might have been an error in the index. It was not an error in the index. Across the bench, Councillor Verith leaned toward the member beside her and said something I could not hear. The member did not answer. He was looking at his own copy of the founding charter, which he had apparently never opened before today. The Accord Permanent Registry was not within the Closure Authority's administrative domain. It was a separate body, the original founding secretariat, which had been largely ceremonial for 3 decades. It held documents that no one had needed to look at because no one had ever formally closed a founding delegation before. Until now. Savith Ron turned to the clerk. The clerk turned the terminal so the bench could see. Founding Protocol 12, Instrument 7, Terran Compact. Dated 31 years, 4 months, and 9 days prior. Deposited with the Accord Permanent Registry on the morning of original ratification. Status, sealed pending trigger condition. Trigger condition, formal closure by the Vardesi Closure Authority. Status as of 43 minutes ago, active. What does the instrument specify? One of the bench members asked. I recognized her, Councillor Verith, the youngest member of the bench, the one who had cast her assent without reading the full ground summary. I did not answer her. I did not need to. The clerk was reading it now, and his face was doing the work. Founding Protocol 12 instruments were negotiated by the Accord's original drafters as a structural safeguard, a recognition that the founding body might someday make errors it could not easily correct. They were designed to be uncomfortable. The Terran delegation, 31 years ago, had registered an instrument that specified the following. In the event of formal closure, all concessions extracted from the Terran Compact during Accord membership, resource levies, transit fee schedules, exclusion zones, fleet certification requirements, preferential licensing terms for Accord members in Terran-administered space, would be automatically null and void, effective the moment of the trigger. Not renegotiated. Null. The legal baseline reverted to pre-Accord status, as if the Terran Compact had never signed. 31 years of Accord leverage over Terran space. Gone, as of 43 minutes ago. The resource levies alone, 17% of Terran deep space extraction, remitted to the Accord General Fund on a quarterly cycle, had been running for 28 of those 31 years. The transit fee schedules applied to every commercial vessel crossing the inner corridor. The exclusion zones limited Terran fleet movement in 6 sectors the Accord had never actually administered. The preferential licensing terms gave Accord member species commercial access to Terran-administered ports at rates the Terran Compact had never set and could never adjust. All of it, gone. The Closure Authority had no mechanism to undo a triggered Protocol 12 instrument. That, too, was in the Charter. The instrument, once active, ran to completion. The Authority could not reopen the file, because the file was sealed, by its own stamp, and a sealed file could not be unsettled without a full Accord General Assembly vote requiring unanimous consent of all founding members. One of those founding members was the Terran Compact, which was, as of 43 minutes ago, no longer a recognized participant in the Accord. Savith Ron set both hands flat on the bench surface. He looked at me with the expression of a man who has just understood the shape of a structure he thought he was standing on top of. You could have informed the Authority, he said. At any point during the session. I could have, I agreed. The Authority would have had grounds to reconsider the termination motion. Possibly, I said. Then why? I picked up the founding charter. I returned it to the document case. I fastened the clasp. Because you had 31 years to ask, I said. And the only time you were ever going to read Article 44 was after the stamp came down. I stood up from the observer's rail. The chamber did not move. 11 members of the Vardesi Closure Authority sat in their amber-gray robes and looked at the terminal and at Savath Ron and at the sealed record of a proceeding they could not now unseal, and no one spoke. I walked to the chamber door at the back of the hall. It was a heavy thing, brushed alloy, inlaid with the Vardesi procedural seal. I opened it myself. Before I let it close behind me, I heard Savath Ron's voice, very quiet, and no longer carrying the weight of a man who has just ended something. "Recess," he said. "Indefinite recess." The door closed. The sequence was still running.